Welcome to Circuit 42.
Circuit 42.
The one-stop location for all things geek. This episode is brought to you by our sponsors, Dragon's Lair San Antonio and Gotham Newsstand. Sit back, relax, and most importantly, enjoy another episode of Circuit 42.
Circuit 42.
Right in my mouth.
That's a thing to hear when you first sign into a Skype conversation.
A new voice appears.
Hello.
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 Are you guys?
See, this is like the polar opposite of Mike. Because like one's like really loud and clear and one's kind of hiding in the background.
Somebody knows
guys
how
hear
to
me
use
all
their
right, or
microphone.
no?
I can't hear you, Mike. Are you still there?
Can you hear me right now? Or
We
no?
can hear you now. We're just using
I'm just trolling.
Okay.
All right, so, so basically we're going to be reviewing Black Panther tonight. And
So we can all agree, worst movie ever, right?
You're a liar.
Yeah, you saw it, right?
I did see it.
Okay, good.
I didn't like it in the 3D. I had some issues with 3D, and I'll talk about that when we're doing the review. I felt like certain scenes during the 3D was very hard to see what was going on, specifically in fight scenes.
Well, you're definitely not saving it for the review right now, so...
Yeah.
Well, do we really ever kind of... Yeah, but half the time we don't really have an intro. It just kind of happens. But we do have a special guest reviewer with us tonight at Circuit 42. Can you introduce yourself? Or will you introduce yourself? My grammar man.
Grammar man.
Is this the part where I speak?
Yes.
I'm just making sure.
Yes.
Alrighty, yes. My name is Aliya Mack. I am just a person that I guess I should say just revolves around the geek community and has these conversations in real life as well as online and speaks about it very passionately, especially about the intersectionality of these mediums into the narratives that weave their ways into our real lives and real social context. And I think that's the reason why you've asked me to be here today, because Black Panther is kind of all of those things wrapped up into a nice little package.
Yes, it is.
You're recommended to us by Michael Martinez. We don't know who he is, but we just kind of were like, why not? Hey, Michael, how's it going?
I just
What's
appreciate the Batman picture. I don't really know much about the Mike himself.
Yeah. That's pretty much my pick in.
I'm actually not Paul Rudd, but I know that's a surprise for everybody.
Wait, you're Paul
I'm the person. I am the person.
You're the person? Okay.
Yeah, the person that's featured in that image, that is me. That is my face.
I don't think
Rare
I have
exception
your
show.
image. Give me 1 second.
Tanya Williams is not actually a Japanese anime.
Not yet, anyway.
There's those trucks that we edited out, so... Yeah.
Shh, what trucks?
See, I didn't mention it.
The
He
trucks
did.
will not be mentioned for the rest of the show.
Somebody lives next to trucks. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but I think his name is Ian.
I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to... Don't worry, though. We'll edit out the road noise and anyone who says the word trucks.
You just said it.
Damn it!
You know, there's this
Where's
movie
your
now.
market?
There's a Stephen King movie called Trucks.
I know. It's a follow-up to the greatest movie of all time, Maximum Overdrive.
But they're the same movie.
Nope. So it's to transition away from the classic Maximum Overdrive. So, of course, we will be reviewing Black Panther tonight. The recently released from MCU, Marvel, and Mickey Mouse Corporation.
So who wants to
I
tackle this
do
first?
appreciate my new Disney princess. I can say that much.
Well, yeah, she kicks the most ass of the Disney princesses.
Mm.
It's pretty much her and Princess Leia.
Shuri stole
I
the...
mean, I gotta give Merida her due. I mean, I am part Scottish, so I kind of have to a little bit. There's like loyalty there.
And I'm a Macintosh, so I have to appreciate that too. No, I mean that actually I'm a Macintosh, and I'm like, what the fuck? My ancestors got mentioned in something? This is kind of amazing.
I mean, well, let me ask that. So that can actually transition well into some thoughts I have about Black Panther. What is that feeling like? So that you're seeing on a screen your name, something that you directly relate to, on a screen, and being reflected in a narrative and a story. What does that like just feel like, even just casually? What does that feel like?
It's really... It's kind of odd, but it kind of fills me with a sense of pride. I mean, perfect example being, there's a movie called Centurion. Now, this is a little bit different because my ancestors were basically, like, crazy Scottish warriors who were like, you know, we could all wait in a line, or we could just sneak up on you and stab you with giant pikes. And, like, Centurion is basically that. So, for my Scottish ancestry, it's a little mixed. We either get, like, really cute Disney cartoons, or we're all crazy warrior people.
I mean, then there's also, you know, like, stuff in that general region that comes out, and you got, like, stuff like The Wicker Man.
Come on, that's the best remake. It has Nicolas Cage in a bear suit, and he punched that person, like, in the face.
Not the bees.
It's me, okay? It's like, good job, Nick. You're doing this proud.
I mean, that's why you see Nick Cage movies, though, just to see how over the top he is.
Well, yeah, Zandali, the best movie. Don't watch Zandali. Actually, watch it.
I recently had to explain to my wife what Face Off was, because it was a little bit before her time. I was like, yeah, it is literally called Face Off because their faces come off.
Yeah, but you have to perform it, like the whole, I'm going to take his face
Off.
Yeah.
For the rest of the review, Ian and I
Actually, the way
possibly
you delivered that, yeah, that was more Nick Cage. That was completely more Nick. Like, I finally got a chance to watch that movie where the meme came from, and that was the most ridiculous movie I have. It is literally just Nicolas Cage over emoting to everything.
I love his faces.
I can't remember the name of it, but like where the entire meme comes from, I saw it one day, and I was just like, this is well deserved of a meme. Because why did you do this? I don't understand. It was such an extreme performance. I kind of want to look it up right now, but I don't have an ability to toggle to anything to research anything. So anything that comes out of my mouth right now will literally have to be off the top of my head.
My favorite delivery from the movie is still, I don't give a fuck! It's like greatest, it's like, so we're gonna reshoot that? No, let's just go with it. Shit.
So, yes, so alright, so back to the whole reason why I even asked you about the whole thing about the reflection is because that's kind of from the black community, and no, I'm not speaking on behalf of every single black person that was out there, but I would like to say a good number of them had this thing where they saw themselves, or people like themselves, or culture like themselves, or the ones that they value on a screen, and they felt that unbridled joy. They truly, truly did. I want to even ask about this. With your podcast, what is the limitations of cursing?
There is no limitation.
There's a limitation?
What's the limitation?
I have no idea. There are people who have like preferences and stuff.
I
like,
have said the F word so many times on the show. It's okay.
Usually because I say something, Ian gets upset, he says the F word. It's a good time.
So yeah. So in that case, with consent given, unbridled fucking joy. That's literally what is going through the black community, straight through the vein of it, and everything that comes with it, with the characters. There is such a multifaceted conversation that has been ignited just because so many black people were crashed into this community of nerddom and like history, like the first mention of Black Panther in the Fantastic Four in July of 1966. 3 months prior to Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale coming together about the Black Panther in October of 1966. coming face to face with this information and this kind of like crashing of nerd culture and black culture, and that this is not a new thing. It's causing waves in the black community, and then there's the larger American community and the social context that we live in. And a lot of those themes are it's a lot to unpack. This movie is a lot to unpack, and people have been doing it consistently now for about 5 days.
I mean, just
So what was like your favorite moment of the movie?
What?
If you can nail it down, what was your favorite moment?
You want one. I'm sorry. You want one.
My favorite, personally, was "What Is Love? Baby, Don't Hurt Me" with the Russian.
Oh, you like the troll claw. That's actually that's how I call him. I call him the troll claw. He is every line he says is trolling. Every line, everything. He is. Think about the movie for the guys. Literally, I will shut up. But seriously, think about that. Every single line, every single turn, Claw was trolling. It was kind of amazing.
yep.
Yeah. Ian actually compared me to one of the characters in the movie because of stuff I do on a regular basis.
Dan is basically like podcast M'Baku.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that whole scene where they first try to get his help. That is Dan on a regular basis. If the more time you spend here, the more you'll get used to that.
By the way, I'm Dan, since I never got introduced earlier.
Oh, hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Who's Dan?
But yeah, while watching the movie, as soon as I saw Baku, after Ian mentioned it, I was like, yep, damn it, yep.
But
yeah.
he gets that awesome moment at the end of the movie, though.
It's like, he's going to... That was like one thing I did kind of... I can go into a little bit later. That did kind of like disappoint me there. There is a little bit of predictability in some of the scenes of the movie, but overall I did like it. I just kind of saw him coming back, like when he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to help you." You kind of got the whole sense that he's going to show up later on to be the one to save the day type situation.
But I mean, it's a Marvel movie. Like, what are we really expecting? I mean, like, seriously,
True.
I've told some people, I was like, when they go into this movie, I'm like, if you want to have some criticism of the movie, just remember, we all cheered when Cap had that building and that helicopter, and Chris Evans is just flexing, and we're just all flipping out. That happened. It was so ridiculous. It was so absolutely ridiculous, but we are nerds. We are comic book nerds. That was a shot straight out of a panel. Like it was on that kind of suspension of belief, but yet joy. You know what I'm saying? So, like, yes, M'Baku coming back, that's a part of the narrative because it's Marvel. They have a certain storytelling style, especially with the MCU. I'm starting to really enjoy how that's becoming fleshed out because you can see it developing into an actual, like, style. Like, you have, like Kurosawa has a style and Tarantino has a style. Like, the MCU is starting to really get into and like dig into this style, which DC with DC isn't there yet, and I'm sorry, it's just that's the reality. But Marvel is really getting a chance to it's a clash between the Disney storytelling engine and the Marvel canon, and.
Right.
Really interesting to I can only say that much. It's very, very interesting, and I think Black Panther, it highlights that. And I'm not mad as a nerd, like a flat out nerd. I'm just not mad at all.
I mean, you were mentioning Kurosawa, and the original Avengers movie definitely screams that Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, etc. For sure. I feel like with the last two movies from Marvel, specifically Spider-Man: Homecoming and now Black Panther, the villains are getting fleshed out more. They're not the typical, "Oh, I'm going to take over the world" type villain. They're actually these real people that had real problems that led them to be villains. With Spider-Man: Homecoming, Vulture was just a contractor who basically got pushed aside by Shield and all of them just to basically take over and this whole project, so that affected his family and all, and pushed him toward being taking the tech. And with Black Panther, it was a situation where
Spoilers.
his father.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to say that real quick before you continued. Continue.
But we
Well, I
talked
think
about
a lot of
this
people
anyway.
know that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I think people know Killmonger is the bad guy. I think people know that.
Yeah.
Like even before you go into it, I think people just know that.
Well, his name is
But
Killmonger.
that's kind
The
of
name kind of sets it off.
But
Yeah.
no, I'm talking if we're gonna go into his background though, because
I mean,
his
even the
background
trailers,
is
like, I'm
that's
a bad
old
guy.
conversation. Like if you guys want to get into spoilers, I will. Killmonger. Oof. Like if I can bring anything to this conversation, I would love to have like a good 5 minutes to let y'all know about what Killmonger means to the black community. This dude alone, it's a thing. It's a definite thing. Now, just as on the surface level, as just as a villain and kind of how, and this is what you were going to, of saying that like, you know, they're not just having one-dimensional villains. I mean, yes, in Homecoming we kind of, you know, but at the same time there was like kind of like Ultron. Ultron kind of had a point. And you had oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Like I told you, I don't have my computer, so it's hard for me. I usually have notes and stuff, but really angry Wachovia dude, that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, that guy is like, that's what I'm saying. Like Marvel he has a point. Marvel is getting these very more identifiable, quote unquote, bad guys or villains, and they tried to make it very much, you know, you choose sides with Civil War. With Killmonger, that needs to be unpacked. It's just that character. I mean, M'Baku's a cool dude. Like, and he's being sexified by all the black women. But like, I didn't experience that. But like, apparently it's a real thing. Like, obviously my friends are growing up about M'Baku being the
I did
sexiest
notice that in my own theater. Like, a lot of people were like, between Baku and, of course, Killmonger's character, they were starting to get like that sense of going along with some of the reasoning of the characters, and I found that interesting.
I don't think that's what she was talking about though on the internet.
Oh no, I'm definitely not talking about that, but yeah.
But it comes back together though. Like people were finding their identity, but and like where they related to. But Killmonger definitely. He's the thing. So as I'm saying, like we can like table that and come back to it because like other people's like favorite scenes too. Oh, my favorite scene.
Yeah.
When Okoye is coming from the second level in the Korean like club down to the first level, the optics of that with her staff and the dress, I died a little bit. Like I've seen the movie 3 times. I've seen the movie 3 times since it came out, and each time I fall out a little bit harder. And that, I think that's my favorite scene between that and Warrior Falls. Warrior Falls was pretty awesome too. But
I loved when she threw the wig on the ground after, because she clearly hated the thing.
Oh, that was fun.
The aesthetic of the whole movie, but especially the scene you were talking about in the club, like the whole movie is just aesthetically just awesome, and it's something Marvel's getting a lot better at with this and with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh well, see, it's the thing though. But if you consider the source material, to me, that's what makes it so wonderful. Because it literally becomes this cinematic treatment of the source material. Like the way that you don't do that or you fail when you try to do that is, I'm going to say, go see Ghost in the Shell starring Scarlett Johansson. That's not how you treat That is not treated. But Black Panther is the antithesis of that experience, in my opinion. I'm kind of an otaku. Just a little bit. I'll call myself out on that. I'll take that. Don't you call me a weeb, I'll punch you in the face.
Weeb.
But I definitely
The
do
fist somehow
appreciate-
flies through the computer and punches him.
I
definitely
can't-
appreciate
I
how,
can't
the
really
Marvel
do it.
movies
Right.
are getting more distinct.
Yeah, it'd be a gift of like the chicken to Peter Griffin. That's the punch I just gave you in response to you calling me a weeb.
I mean, I'm big into like anime and stuff, so I can't really say much.
It's like one of those Japanese animes. I say this with having a giant like anime binder in my room.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just kind of like, that's what I'm saying. That's why I love those optics. That's why it's my favorite scene, is because it was like watching a comic. It's like watching Black Panther. Like, oh man, I'm messing up everybody's names. Please, no one kill me that listens to this podcast. But
Luckily, no one listens to this podcast.
I'm just saying. If should anybody, I'm just saying, I don't like being wrong a lot of times. And so a lot of times, if I don't think I know the thing, I'll just Google it real quick. But right now, I'm on like I said, I can't multitask because of my technology as I'm back. But anyway, Coates wrote 11 issues, I believe, of the current Black Panther.
Yeah.
And that's just, I'm thinking like those kind of optics. I'm thinking about classic optics of Black Panther. Just through the medium that is comic and just American comic medium, and then seeing a cinematic treatment of it, like it is fantastic. Like I get to see it a lot, considering like anime, because you have manga to anime, and you get to see these things come to life, and it's just it becomes more of a standard, even aesthetically, that you can start to see like diversity and stuff like that. But with American comics, we don't see it as much. If we do, it's like shit like Garfield, and what was the other one, like Peabody and shit. Like, I mean, and I love that. That's Peabody and Sherman. I loved that movie because I really loved the cartoon as a kid.
That movie was oddly hilarious. Like, I expected it to be garbage, and I think this one review summed it up best. They said that they were leaving the theater, and they overheard these two kids, probably like 10 years old, say, "That shit was pretty funny, wasn't it?" Yep. It was like 10-year-old kids. They just said, "Holy shit, that was us as 10-year-olds."
That's awesome. Yes, that. And so Marvel's doing that I think with Black Panther. I love the optics. Like, it's just, I could talk about that almost all day long. Like, seriously. So I'm going to stop there. But, like, my favorite scene optically was from second level to first level, backed up by Warrior Falls. But in that same scene, that same club scene, and I just want, and literally, maybe this could also transition to something else, but the technology, okay? So, Claw has the arm cannon.
So cool.
And T'Challa picks up a safe. Like, he picks up a safe. The cannon blows the safe to smithereens. T'Challa just falls and lands because of his vibranium suit. And Claw looks to the camera, but breaks the fourth wall and said, "I'm making it rain." The quickness of all those things, I'm so glad I watched it 3 times. I had to just digest that shit. It was great. It was freaking great. Like, it's just, because like, the thing about it, if you had to put it all together, all of that speaks to, that entire scene, that what I just described, all of that speaks to Wakandan technology. That's what none of that scene could even be possible unless you suspend the belief to believe in the power of Wakandan technology, why the rest of the world should fear it, no, literally fear it, and respect it. You know what I'm saying? And it's a Marvel movie. There's so much here. I love it. I really love the film.
I got to say with that, I've actually got two favorite scenes in the movie. Two favorite scenes were the robbery at the museum.
Yes.
Because that was perfect. That actually reminded me of like some of my favorite heist movies. And the way that was done was just legitimately creepy. And the car chase. Because a lot of times with car chases, modern directors don't know how to shoot them. And this is actually something I liked about the movie Baby Driver, was that they actually knew how to shoot car chases. And this movie does that too. It's a different kind of car chase, but you can actually tell what was going on. Which is like, oddly enough, most directors who do car chases can't figure that out. And I'm sitting here, it's like, if we can't see what's happening, it's going to be like that shitty movie with Selena Gomez, Ethan Hawke. That just sounds bad, I know. Where, like, you literally have a car chase and you never actually have a context of the place that the car is. And it's like, it's like, how the fuck do you do that? From a comic fan perspective, the thing I loved about this movie? They took the best parts of the comic book runs and just showed them on the screen, and they took some of the parts from some of the worst comic book runs and they improved them. Perfect example with Panther's Rage, the story where they introduced Killmonger by Don McGregor. They took all the great thing about Don McGregor is that he's always hated the idea of a one-dimensional villain. So every villain, the character he creates has to have multiple dimensions, has to have motivation and a reason for doing that. They took his reasoning from the comic and just put it in the movie. And in terms of Christopher Priest, my other favorite writer on Black Panther, his whole thing was just about building the universe. Like, we have a lot of Black Panther, but it was consistent with what came before, so you weren't having retcons and shit that didn't need to be there. But it was it was equally about Black Panther as it was everyone around him, and the movie did that really well. Now,
can I ask your opinion on something really quickly though? That now that you bring this up,
what's up?
So, how do you feel about the character changes?
I actually like them. The biggest one being Everett K. Ross, because I hate Reginald Hudlin's entire Black Panther run. It is garbage. It started off good for about 3 issues, and then I'm like, oh, you have literally met Storm once in the entire time as Black Panther, but apparently you're married now because...
Oh, God.
Shut up. That's why. And I hated the character...
Huh? I mean, I have a question. So maybe I'm not this familiar with it, but my understanding of just canon is that they were childhood friends?
He actually retconned that in. Like, he put that into his run. But that's something that was only there in Reginald Hudlin's run. It had never been done before. And that was just kind of put in there.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, like, it was like, Storm Ex Machina.
Basically, yeah. And then he took...
I'm sorry. I was thinking for a timeline. Like I'm saying, like maybe I'm wrong on the thing, but yeah, I thought but I didn't realize she was Storm Ex Machina.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
They just put her in the story because reasons. And then
timing is everything.
Exactly. And there was no timing in that series. And then Everett K. Ross, which is a character that he created in that run, was just kind of a really lame character. Like, he was just there to be like, oh, look how lame this guy is, and that was his entire character. And Martin Freeman as Ross, he just worked really, really well, and they pretty much just rewrote his character and had the elements of that, but actually showed that he worked with him just as much. That he wasn't just a twit, which is basically what he was in that comic book run. And then M'Baku, I love what they did with M'Baku, because if they had brought him in and just made him another villain like in the comic book, that would have been way too much. And doing what they did with him and turning him and giving him almost like a quasi-neutral role, that was one of the best things they could have done.
Agreed. I fully agree with that. Fully agree with M'Baku. Just like stylistically with the film and their liberties that they took. I understand why in terms of just the telling of the story. But yeah, I agree with Mbaku. Dan?
As far as the two characters mentioned, as Black Panther as a whole, I have never actually read the books, but I was actually
I'm going to
intrigued
send
with
you a
the
reading list, Dan.
But I was okay. But I was intrigued with the character after seeing him in Civil War, which is arguably a movie I didn't care for as much as other people did, but I still thought it was okay. But I did like his character in the movie a lot, so I was already kind of invested seeing his solo film when it came out. And when they brought in a lot of actors that I recognized from other things, like Killmonger was very good from his and definitely a lot better used than when he was in Fantastic Four and all that.
Ironically, the best part of that movie, and yeah, he was the part that people complained about the most.
Because reasons.
Reasons.
As far as Martin Freeman, as you mentioned, I actually really dug the scene where he's like flying the plane at the end of the movie, the artificial plane that he's basically piloting, and that he's all ready to sacrifice himself. It's like, no, you need to get out. They're going to break in at any time. And he's like, no, I must get this last supply ship. And he actually goes in, destroys it. And then the movie kind of makes you think that something's about to happen. Trying to really avoid spoilers
I really
now.
expected him.
And then I tried to avoid spoilers.
You know what? I'll just say it. I'm so glad they didn't kill him, because that would have been a waste.
Yeah, like I thought for a second that they were really leaning toward he's going to do like a heroic sacrifice, and the fact that he got the final supply ship and was still able to get out in time was great. I was really like, please don't take this character out of the movie. Yeah, like I was really enthralled with the movie in general, like just things that were happening throughout it. I mean, there were things that were kind of like hard to see because, like I mentioned, when I went to see it, I've only seen it once so far. I plan to see it again. I saw it in 3D, and a lot of the fight scenes, at least for the early part of the movie, was very hard to make out at times because of just the way it was shot in 3D.
Yeah, you guys were actually starting off that way in terms of the fact that the 3D part made it hard to see certain parts of the scene. Now, I've seen it 3 times. I saw it very first time in 3D, and I've seen it twice so far in standard. In standard definition. Now, with that being said, I'm curious to hear that too, like to hear more of that conversation, because I think that's the conversation I came in on, which was how the 3D took away from certain scenes. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, usually like the 3D is supposed to enhance the movie, especially with Marvel when they finally got like the niche of 3D. There's some pretty good movies with Marvel that work with 3D, like for instance Guardians of the Galaxy 2, when they did that whole space scene. That was amazing in 3D. But like in this one, I felt like that there was color issues. Like some scenes were too dark in 3D compared to like if I had probably seen it in standard definition. I mean, it didn't take me completely, and at times it would take me out of the movie because of that. Now, that's why I was really hoping to see standard again, but when I went to go, I actually was trying to see it yesterday, but it was sold out till like a really late showing, and I didn't want to stick around till a late showing. But, yeah, I just felt like certain scenes with 3D, with specifically color-wise, and it usually seems to be like any fight scenes. It was just you would have to really focus to see what's going on at times. Like, but overall, like I still enjoyed the film, and there was some parts that did use the 3D well. I did see that Marvel's still doing the big "this location" letters
It was not nearly as bad.
Guys.
It was not nearly as bad as Civil War, where it's like, bruh, here we are.
Oh, come on, guys. The dude, alright, so I don't know about you guys, but I'm on the internet a lot, and so, yeah, what Dan's talking about, that's like totally CinemaSins right there. It's just like, location, in case you didn't know.
Oh,
But like, if you don't know this is Wakanda, if you don't know this is a mystical African nation, here you go, we're back in Wakanda.
See,
But
I've seen that Wes Anderson did the caption.
There you go! Oh god! Guardians of the Galaxy, you're totally right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm wondering which movie did it first, honestly. I think it was it Age of Ultron that did it first?
Oh, no, it was Civil War. Civil War was blatant about it. Like, it was hilarious. Because,
Like,
like,
the
you had
biggest
giant words
letters
across the screen.
possible are just popping up on the screen.
And if you saw it in 3D, those letters are in 3D. So they are literally
What?
throwing the giant name of the location at you in 3D in Civil War.
In Black Panther, those giant letters that you see, granted they're at the very bottom of the screen
that wasn't
instead
so
of at the middle, at the very top center. So it's a little less jarring, but yeah, it still popped in your face.
Like I said, I think in terms of Civil War, they got Wes Anderson to do the location text, which is why it just throws it in your face every single time.
All right, Michael, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was having a
Alright.
weird moment with my wife here.
Alright, his wife is amazing. That's actually the reason why I know him, is because his wife is this wonderful chocolate cosplayer of a amazing and talented thing, and he got married to her while I've known her, and I was just clapping to his existence for a while. Like, no, seriously, that's how I met this person, and then we met at a small freaking con, like a really small con, Tempe, like the Tempe Library Con. That's where we met for the first time. I actually got to hear the dude speak, and outside of the fact that I'm like, dude, you just make excellent choices, apparently. Like, that's literally how I met this person. Like, I was like, I knew her, and he's like, oh, I'm the person that decided to marry her. I'm like, good for you!
I just love how you said that. Good for
Like,
you.
that's Michael Martinez. That's how I met that dude, right? And
Okay,
so,
we didn't even
and
narrate the entire life of Michael Martinez. It would be fantastic.
dude, then we meet at this small con, and I get to actually hear words come out of the human's mouth, and I'm like, I see why she might have married you. This is good. I approve of this union. Like, it was like, that's what happened, and they got married. Yeah, and that's pretty much like, it's, so that dude. So I'm really curious, Michael, what were your thoughts on any of the things we've talked about? We've talked about, like, 3D and the fewer scenes and characters and criticisms, but you've been quiet, so I'm interested.
Okay, well, so I'm gonna throw out and I know we're really praising this movie a lot, but I am gonna throw out a criticism that I do have of the movie, and it was kind of came about, I guess, as I was breaking this down for somebody else. And early on, I got exposed to a very simple non-spoiler review that kind of broke it down a little bit and was saying that if there's a major fault within the Black Panther movie, it's kind of that the main character T'Challa doesn't really have any main character flaws, so he doesn't have a whole lot of edge to him. And after seeing the movie, I guess I would have to agree with that. But as I'm digesting the whole movie, I think maybe what happened is the fact that it kind of suffers through the kind of same problem that I attribute to Orange is the New Black or Weeds, in that there's so many interesting secondary characters that the main character seems way less interesting, by comparison. And I think that kind of happens with Black Panther, is that it expands the universe, the Marvel universe, so much, and introduces us to so many different interesting characters that have so many layers to them. Not just the villains, like Killmonger, but obviously his sister Shuri. Everybody around him. It feels like they could all have their own little movie or little mini series, and you want to spend more time with them and you want to get to know them better. And they stand out so much. It almost feels like you almost, I don't know, I don't want to say that you forget that he's there, but you you just appreciate these secondary characters so much, and the fact that they're so fleshed out that they
So are
almost
you saying that,
overshadow it a little bit.
So are you saying that we basically, these other secondary characters stand out to the point that we're forgetting why we're invested in T'Challa?
Not necessarily why we're like invested in him, but just that it is more interesting to see characters that have like a little bit more of like an edge to them, a little bit more like flaws to them. And when we're talking about things like the villains, when we're going into Killmonger a bit, I was talking to somebody else about this today, and it was basically another one of the instances of like a Marvel, I guess, like villain, like just having like a really like kind of like a great point. Like really like in the movie, T'Challa is kind of like breaking down to everybody else like, you kind of screwed over this character a lot. And he's like, and then the character comes back and he's like, and it's almost like Black Panther is kind of like fighting him because that's kind of like what he feels like he has to do. But really he does like kind of like agree with him a lot. And in the end, he does kind of like move, I guess, his worldview a little bit more towards him. Not to that extreme, but he definitely does make T'Challa, second guess like his worldview and basically everything that he knows, and that's definitely what good villains do.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying here. Like, don't get me wrong, Black Panther is a very interesting character in the movie, but the problem, like you were saying, is I'm more invested in the secondary characters. Like when we were talking earlier about our favorite moments, none of my favorite moments were with Black Panther. Like everything was about like some secondary character and what they did. And yeah, like even with the villain, like I feel like you could really relate more to the villain than Black Panther in this movie for quite a bit. Like especially when he's talking about, maybe we should get involved and try to do things to help the people that have been suffering for all this time. I mean, this entire society kind of sits back and doesn't involve itself because it doesn't want to like jeopardize things, but it really comes off as a form of cowardice where you just leave anyone except yourselves to basically suffer in the world. And I'm like, wow, this character kind of overshadows Black Panther, and even in his death I kind of felt that way too. It was kind of crazy, really.
The irony is that you actually pointed out a major flaw by saying that with T'Challa, is that he's so drawn into what his father told him and what he was taught that he's basically continuing the lie, because he so doesn't want to involve their culture with other cultures that he's keeping them locked away.
Right.
And
I'm saying, like, if it wasn't for Killmonger, though, I don't think he would have ever changed. Like if Killmonger or any of the other events in the movie hadn't occurred, I don't think that Wakanda would have changed at all. It would have been the same thing, just a different generation would have kept going. Like,
agreed.
And that's kind of the problem. Like, the person making the big changes is only making those changes because he's like, wow, this person who was the main villain is actually the one that is right in the situation. Granted, he wanted to do it an extreme way by basically wiping out anyone that even interferes with the people he's trying to protect, but at the same time, you kind of relate, like, he's trying to do right by the people in this movie, but in a messed up way.
Right. So I'm gonna like jump back a little bit because you mentioned how like we're talking about our favorite moments of the film and how like none of them are revolving around T'Challa and what he's doing. But I will say that I think that my favorite moment of the film, even though it was actually like part of the post-credit scene, was something that T'Challa said, and I built up like a little image of it, but it was like a quote from the movie, and it basically said, "In times of trouble, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers."
I love that burn. That burn! Oh, it burns so good.
Yep.
And yeah, and I actually was reading up like a little interview with Chadwick Boseman about it, and he was the interviewer was talking to him a little bit, and he was just like, so is that kind of like a dig at what's going on in the political landscape right now? Is that like Marvel kind of like taking a stance? And he's just like, well, I guess you could interpret it that way. Like, if you want to interpret it that way, like, go ahead. Because, yeah, this is like a moment where, basically, not just, in the Marvel like universe, but I guess like for everybody, because art imitates life and whatnot. But where we get to say, as a people, like what we are about and what we aren't about, and that was a great moment, I think, for the film, and it might be my favorite moment of the film.
Okay, so Michael.
Yeah.
Michael, so can I speak specifically to what you're saying and saying that? And doesn't Marvel do that, like in the comics? Isn't that what Marvel does? Marvel has Marvel did it, DC did it, like, it all, comics, when things are going on in the world, I mean, that's the thing, a lot of people forget, like, they look at comic book movies, and they put it through such a filter of what's happening right now. Like, I listened to commentaries. I started listening to the commentaries, like the freaking YouTube videos. There's one that's particularly disgusting, and I actually have it on my to watch later list, so I can go back to it as often as I'd like to now. Because I literally just saw the title and I was like, I'll watch this later, and because someone who got a sneak preview for it, and when I finally listened to it, I'm just like, and that's what you took away from it? 20 minutes this dude drew on of his criticisms through such a pointed political filter that he literally reorganized the story at certain points to, like, feed his agenda. And because he was like, this has a left-wing agenda. And I'm like, do you understand comic books have existed way before anybody was alive? It's alive right now. Like, I mean, alive right now. I mean, there might be a couple of centurions around, but comic book and this method of storytelling, this method of commentary has existed for almost 100 years. People really forget this. And I'm like, Marvel can do that. It doesn't have to be left-wing, and it doesn't have to be right-wing. It doesn't have to have any particular agenda. But they can make commentary. But there are people who just forget that, and they get so caught up in the current moment of, that's a dig at the wall, that entire speech. That's the dig at the wall. Yes, it is. And what you going to do about it? Yes! You, Michael! Oh, my God. Yes. Brevity. You're good at it.
Yeah, I really enjoy that moment a lot, and it just speaks to, I guess, something that I think is going to like have a lot of ramifications, because one thing that we're talking about, like you were talking about earlier, specifically like the technology of Wakanda, and when you think about it, like, we don't like to talk about Iron Man 2 a lot, but Iron Man 2 dealt a lot with the fact that, like, everybody was freaking out over the fact that Tony Stark had, like, this really advanced piece of technology, and he wasn't wanting to share it with the world. So how is the world going to react when they see a whole country that is basically, like, 20, 30 years ahead of them and has been kind of, like, hoarding this technology themselves? Is everybody going to go, like, what's that scramble to look for Wakanda going to look like when it's not just, a couple of crazy people looking for El Dorado in the wrong continent? What's going to happen then? Is there going to be like a huge like fallout of that? That's something that's going to be really interesting going forward.
Okay, and so that can transition into just a little bit that that is really kind of the allegory that gets created in the Marvel universe, cinematic and otherwise, is this. You have to adhere to this concept, and this is what I think a lot of people are having, especially with their own political beliefs and agendas and kind of the timing of things, is that I think a lot of people are going to lose this because this happens to be about black people. I hate to say it like that, and I really hate to call it out like that, but I believe there are going to be a lot of fans who, because of our political climate, are going to be less apt to accept what has already been pre-established in these comics for over 50 years. Mm-hmm. Let's just get real about it. This is 50 years of verifiable content that you can look at. This is not false news. This is what was accepted as this is a part of this universe. This is not any left-wing perspective. Stop it.
Thank you.
Like, just
Thank you
really,
so much.
just stop it. Just stop it. That's what it is. But with that being said, yes, there are people taking this opportunity to tell the shit out of that story. Like, really, black people, we're just a narrative people in general. I'm willing to just say that. In the entire fucking continent, we love telling stories. We just love it. I've won some awards in it. Like, that's like, you can Google that shit. I literally have won awards for the ability to tell a story and the storytelling, and that's been since I was, since I was 14. I'm 36, so I've been doing this for 22 years. 24 years. I can't do math.
Neither can I. You're
quite some time. Well, I've been doing this for a while and doing the research behind it to the point that I've even done talks, like TED-level TED Talks type shit like that. Not actually TED, because, that's a whole structure that's behind that, and literally Dumb and Dumberer really made fun of that well. It did, and I was so happy about that. But I've given talks. I have actually been, invited to conferences to speak. With that being said, there is a power to the narrative of black storytelling, and you have this crashing of opportunity, social climate, these narrative vehicles that have been pre-established by two white guys. It's such an opportunity that people aren't going to pass it up. So, yes, you will feel the certain kind of political perspectives. Sure, you're going to feel it, but understand the importance of the narrative. You come back to Wakanda and you see that technology, and you see how humans respond to the ultimate white guy, Tony Stark. He is so cool. He's like everyone likes Tony Stark. Republicans, everyone loves Tony Stark because you have to. He is the manifestation of everything that we kind of want to figure out. That's kind of what Tony Stark is. And they got mad because he had that technology, and whether or not he was going to use it to exploit the world or share with the world so that we could better continue building weapons, which Stark Industries was doing. And that was Tony Stark. You have an entire civilization for thousands of centuries who is doing this shit, and they're black. That's some chemistry. That's like astronomical level chemistries in the same universe where gods exist. All these other narratives don't stop coexisting. The world is being put through a lot of strain. Marvel is going to have a lot of messages compared to where we are right now in our world. People just got to get over it. You're right, Michael. People have to get over it. It's just going to happen.
I thought there was also a little bit of a dig also at the current like leadership also in Thor Ragnarok. I don't know if anybody. I think we've all seen it, right? We've all seen it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so like throw in a little mini spoiler alert for that. But anyway, I love the part where Thor is basically like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? You do have a claim, and you have the right to sit there, but you're just the worst, so you have to go. And I thought that was a little bit of a dig too.
You're just the worst.
There's something I wanted to touch on because you were talking about how comics have been around forever, pretty much. It's basically the storytelling tool, the storytelling tool created by the 20th century. And basically, without that we wouldn't have that, and it's something so unique to that period. There was a comic published by EC Comics, the guys who Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror. It was a sci-fi story called Judgment Day, and this is back in 1958, and it was about an astronaut, and he finds this planet. It's inhabited by robots, and there's two races. One of them is orange and one is blue, and he's basically witnessing this entire planet, where just simply because of the colors that the robots are, when he's less privileged, they have fewer rights, and pretty much as he's seeing all this, so he's seeing these people basically these robots destroy themselves through bigotry, and eventually, and basically realizing, and the Galactic Republic, they basically don't want to admit that there's bigotry on the planet. They're trying to avoid it. And the astronaut removes his helmet, revealing that he's actually black. And the last line of the comic is, and inside the ship, the man removed his space helmet and shook his head, and the instrument lights made the beads of perspiration on his dark skin twinkle like distant stars. And the comic book code literally told them that the character cannot be black. And that EC basically called them out on it and said, no, if you tell us that, if you make us change that, there was no point to the comic book anymore. There's no point to the story anymore. And it's crazy that was 1958. And even then, and I love that EC basically fought government censorship on that comic book and got it published anyway. I just wanted to mention that.
Well, you know what? That reminds me, and then this just really quickly has nothing to do with Black Panther, but the series that got me starting to read comics, like flat out. I mean, like there's proto interests that I can always go back to when I'm really, really small. But if I were to say any key series, like what was the series that you're just like, I'm in, I'm diving into this, this is what I'm investing in now, was Sandman, the graphic novel series by Neil Gaiman.
Sandman's amazing.
And
amazing.
Yeah, and so literally I don't fangirl over other humans. Like doesn't happen often. But Gaiman is one. He really is. And I got to see him give a talk last year here in Mesa, Arizona, and it was really awesome to hear him talk about the treatment of American Gods that came out last year.
I love that show.
And he said, diversity matters. And it came to casting. And literally, he sat there and and like maybe I'm misquoting him, but it was really short. And the crowd we were so quiet. It was that moment of just respectful silence. And then then there was just an eruption from me and then other people. But this was an eruption of thank you. Just fucking thank you. Thank you for being a person who's going to say this in Mesa, Arizona, right after we voted for Trump. Thank you so much for telling us right before we see your series, when it came down to casting and the makeup of the cast of the specific characters, Bast being another one, like she needed to be black. She had to be black. She was not going to be any other color than this very rich, dark black, and she's a very sexualized character. She comes at the very top of the entire series, of that story, but she had to be. And then everything else that goes subsequent to that, he literally just summed it up by said, diversity matters. And so with that, I have to I have to be able to appreciate that. Like I really do have to appreciate, looking at your narratives and being mindful of how you are casting your characters. Because, I mean, these things are going to be visually represented. And from the 1950s to the 2000 teens, it's a culture that somewhere we've gotten at. We've at least on some level, as a fandom, we have appreciated that for that long. That's legacy. That's kind of legacy. Like that's why I try to speak to certain nerds that way. Like I'm like, dude, you've been doing this. This is not actually hard for you. It's hard for some people. It's really hard for some people. But if you're a real nerd in my eyes, I just have so much evidence to give you from your own shit to tell you that please stop. Like, just please stop. This should not be a discussion anymore. It's the same stuff that you love. You know, I love it, you love it. It's already written down. It's our Bible. Can we just agree that that's how it existed and that's how it is, and this is what we've been trying to do for a while. You know, from Gene Roddenberry all the way through, dude. Even what's George Lucas? He's married to this really awesome black chick. It's really kind of cool.
That's
Speaking
why,
of married to black chicks, Michael, what's up?
Yeah, actually, I did have a question for you. So, you were talking about, okay, so going back to Black Panther a little bit, and how, like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, comics, specifically Marvel Comics, is being a little bit more, like, reflective, and it's always going to be a little bit reflective of our landscape, you know, political landscape specifically. So going back to that, and you kind of got a sense of them touching on, you know, like the more extreme, you know, black militant type personality and worldview, and you did get a little bit of that, you know, juxtaposition between, you know, like the Malcolm X and, you know, Martin Luther King type dynamic between, you know, his between T'Chaka's brother and T'Chaka, and so going with that, like when you have that a little bit, I just wanted to get your thoughts on like how you feel like that was like represented versus, you know, how we usually see that type of allegory, because we do see that like in the X-Men films between, you know, Magneto and Xavier, because I always felt that Magneto was given so much screen time and so much leeway to kind of like lay out his worldview, and, you know, you see so many justifications for him being the way that he is, but that Xavier was I felt like he was a little bit shortchanged. So do you feel like they properly explored like both perspectives?
I think the seeds are there. I really do. And I want to get into character specifics so that we're really understanding these analogies. So we have the cultural representation during the 1960s, primarily the 1960s. If I'm getting my decades right. I'm really bad at that. So, but we have the Malcolm versus Martin. Malcolm versus Martin, ideologically, is something that the culture needed. That's just what that is. A lot of people like to tell these narratives as of like this versus that, as opposed to, and bring it to X-Men, this plus this. Because if you think about the X-Men universe, the universe of mutants, all mutants are trying to find their place on that spectrum between Xavier and Eric. Like they really are. They're trying to find these where they lie. And it's not always, and the stories that get told through that mutant universe are through that lens, right? If we can understand that, then yes, we can understand T'Chaka and his brother. We can understand T'Challa and Killmonger, because that's the same dynamic. That's the exact same dynamic. And that's almost even more served up to you and on a platter in your face of that dynamic. You know, you have T'Chaka, who his character flaw is that he has no flaws, right? And then you have Killmonger, who is being drawn in specifically because we are relating to that militarized response to our environment, and that's really what, but that's the thing. Our storytelling narrative is this versus that, versus looking at it from a little bit more of a meta standpoint and saying, here's the environment in which we live. So you got to think about it like T'Challa is treated like he is, kind of like back to what Ian was saying, that T'Challa is being so drawn in by his tradition, he's inadvertently carrying out the lie. That is how people feel. Some people during that time, that's how they felt about Martin Luther King, because they were like, you won't fight back. You were giving into this idea that it's okay to brutalize us as long as you don't do nothing in response. And Killmonger is now in 2018 saying, let's kill them all. Like, that's kind of, and that's his, that is what he's saying. And what this story does, and bringing it into now, without figureheads like Martin and Malcolm, it's a very, very interesting story that's being told. It's kind of like telling the story of Professor X and Magneto. It's like telling that story during the Holocaust. Like if you just had that story and you just had it going on while that was happening. You know, it's a little too contextually fresh. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really powerful moment when T'Chaka he confronted his brother, and his brother is just kind of like, guns and drugs are, being injected into, their society, and their leaders are killed, and it was a very, even though the actor, his name escapes me at the moment, but he didn't get a whole lot of screen time, but in that moment, there was such a truth to what he was saying, and it came across so clearly and so real that it was just kind of oh wow, that it just hits you.
That actor is awesome. I love him in that show, This Is Us. He was only in that show for he was only in the movie for those few scenes to play the father figure to Killmonger. But yeah, he's a great actor on This Is Us. So I recognized him immediately when I saw. I was actually hoping he had a bigger part, but like I said, I haven't read the comics and didn't know he was always fated to die.
One last thing I wanted to touch on.
Sterling K. Brown. Sorry, I had to throw it out there. For those of us who can look it up, I'm sorry. I had to try to look it up and make sure that we did not, even though we're singing his phrases, we can't, just sing all these phrases and then not throw his name out there.
Oh, Ian, and can I ask for one shout out?
What's up?
Shuri and her lab was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
That was pretty awesome.
I mean, literally, where she patches White Boys back up together. All of her order those. She had, this. I wish she was around when I was 18, because I would be cosplaying her every day. I would literally start wearing my makeup like that. She is, the genius, the quips. She's just...
Oh, yeah, I loved her character.
I wish every millennial could be like that. I wish she was.
I absolutely cannot wait until she meets Tony Stark.
Yes.
Mm. That would be interesting. Especially with that one post-credit scene with Winter Soldier there as well that we had.
Bucky Christ?
Yeah.
Actually, that's a better name than White Wolf.
Yeah. Dude, when he emerged, I was just like, Bucky Christ. All right, cool.
One thing I've got to say this. You mentioned her meeting Tony Stark. I think they could legitimately make just like a half an hour little short film with just her, Tony Stark, and Bruce Banner just hanging out. And just make that into a thing. I would watch the shit out of that.
It kind of makes me wonder why they haven't tried to introduce Amadeus Cho yet, because I think that's another character who they could bring in as yet another like genius. I was really expecting him to maybe show up in like Iron Man 3 or something like that, since Hulk isn't getting his own movie anytime soon.
He might, I don't know, but I think they're still trying to focus on the main Hulk at the moment.
Well, Cho's been around a lot longer than people think. Like, a lot of people just assumed that he was a new character. But he's been around for a long time.
Right, I'm just saying as far as the Marvel movies. I'm not saying that he's a new character or anything.
I get you.
I also like the Lion King moment in the movie at the end. When he's like... I've always wanted to see Wachovia, and then they walk up to that thing where he carries him out there, and they're looking out at Wachovia. All I wanted to say is, everything the light touches is Wachovia.
Oh, goodness. Oh, there were so many scenes. No, you're right. You're so right. Every single time they went to the ancestral plane, I'm just like, like, every single time.
I thought of the movie Captain.
Black and purple. The whole thing but in purple. Like it was done by Prince.
Okay.
Like, in my head, I was like, this movie could easily be Lion King if you just changed the title.
Oh, goodness. Stop it.
Aliya, have you ever seen the movie?
So if you think about it, though, a lot of the aesthetic, if you think about it really, like almost even down to the fashion, it was like that. It was like the Lion King as done by Prince. Like literally.
Yes, exactly.
Like, Prince never died. He decided to design all of Wachovia, and I'm like, I'm happy.
It's like I decided to become an art director. It just happened.
How much purple was in the title credits? How many purple? Dude, the end credits. The whole end credits was purple. It was like the whole.
All they had to do is like bring. They should have done like the picture of Prince when he was playing basketball in that Dave Chappelle episode, and just be like, "Look, more purple, guys."
Okay, have
so much
ever seen the movie Cat People?
Yeah.
Dude, Forrest Whitaker, all of them people wearing purple. The heart-shaped herb, that's purple. The whole thing was done by Prince. I'm convinced.
I was like, hey,
we got
Forrest Whitaker crossed over for Star Wars.
Dude, I'm so happy that we got the return of Forrest Whitaker. I think that's why everyone was... I think that's what brought peace to the land, was the return of Forrest Whitaker.
Eye.
Fixed his eye.
That will never happen. Well, Forrest Whitaker eye is
post-production.
Forrest Whitaker eye is a national treasure. Check out this picture. Check out this picture in the chat. This is from the movie Cat People, and I'm convinced that the opening of that movie kind of inspired like The Other Realm. Because it's like, holy crap, they made it purple instead of red. Also, I'm really glad that unlike in the movie Cat People, they didn't put the actors next to actual panthers. Because that was one of the probably... You're watching the movie, it's like, wow, this looks really realistic. Like, they're right next to those animals that could kill the... Oh, shit.
Looking at your image now, I'm really thinking like a mixture of Lion King and Jungle Book at this time.
Oh...
I just want to mix them all together and make the perfect movie.
There is that meme. There's that meme where T'Challa's standing there in the full Black Panther.
I know what you're talking about.
And Mowgli is just on him, and he says Bagheera, and he's like, what? I like both movies very much, and I could hear Mowgli, and I could hear T'Challa. And it was great.
I'm trying to remember the character's name. The one that was like his best friend, that was the lover of the main actress. I can't think. The one that had the rhino, who was the rhino tamer. Can't think of his name.
Hobby.
Right, yeah. He was an interesting character too. I kind of liked the fact that he was so conflicted. Like, should I be with my friend or this new guy that's going to give me everything I want?
Okay, I'm sorry. I keep talking about memes. But there's another meme. Alright, so you know that meme where it is like, there's the dude and he's with his girlfriend, but he looks behind him at the other girl? Alright, so people took his head. This is what happened on my feed, my black nerdy feed. So this happened. They put Killmonger's face as the girl that's walking the other direction, T'Challa as the girlfriend, and W'Kabi as the
What?
That's amazing.
She's amazing. Like, literally, I will have to go ahead and make sure you guys get your hands on it, but that is like, I'd post it to the chat right now if I could. Like I said, I told you, I'm kind of like on the one thing, but yeah, it is the greatest. I have it. I had to save it. It was the best thing I ever saw. I was just like, are you, what?
I just picture, I wanted there to be a post-credit scene where it's just like T'Challa talking to W'Kabi. It's like, so how's it going, T'Challa? That was a good fight we had that you're fired.
T'Challa,
well,
I'm sorry I betrayed you. We're still bros, right? It's
well,
like, get out.
You see that scene part where you try to kill all my friends with a giant rhino and betray us all? Yeah, you're fired. You just gone.
Okay,
It's gone.
so I hate to say this, but W'Kabi is like, this is going to sound so horrible, but that is a black man in the black community. There are very many black men in the black community that are exactly like that are precise. They're not the Killmongers, although they want to think themselves the Killmongers. They're not the T'Challas either. I mean, they're cool men, they're good men, and they submit to a woman when they're supposed to. That was my favorite scene. Oh my God. When Okoye was just like, without question, like, I will, for my country, and he just got to his knees. That was the best thing, because those dudes need to just sit down sometimes, because they just don't, they get real mad, they go get their rhinos, they just, they're boys, and they just start creating, like, drama. Like, dude, there's been conversations, like, in black social media about how that scene where you have the tribes fighting each other, where you have the Dormalaje and this just mass fight amongst black people, they're like, that's the internet. That's just how they see themselves, that they're all trying to fight for the same shit, but they're almost trying to kill each other, type of thing like that. And when W'Kabi just went to his knees, and then everybody kind of chilled out, that was also very poignant too, because it's like, it's saying that if just one of us chooses to just shut up and kind of look around and see what we're fighting for, we might agree. There's a lot of just great imagery just in this, and storytelling. They did a good job. They did a really good job.
I did notice that there was a bit of a upset about the fact that they didn't make the characters at the beginning of the movie. They were supposed to be a couple, and they didn't really go into that relationship at all, because I think Disney still has a hang up about gay characters. I'm not sure because they've done this a couple times. Whenever there's like supposed to be that kind of a character in a movie, they just don't seem to address it or even bring it up or talk about it at all.
What gay character are you talking about?
The two bodyguards in the comics.
Oh!
In the comics, they are in a lesbian relationship, but they took that out.
Yeah, they didn't
Okay,
even,
okay. We were talking about Nakia.
Yeah.
No, I've heard that criticism too. Like, there was people who criticize the fact that we didn't really get to, become invested in T'Challa and Nakia to understand it. So I've seen that criticism and I understand that criticism. But you're talking about between the Dormalaje. Yes, between Okoye and I can't remember the other character's name. Again, I don't know. There's a 4-hour version of this movie.
There's a 4-hour version?
The original cut was like 4.5 hours or something. Like when it like that was the thing too. Like it was about a month and a half ago. I'm not sure if you guys had seen it, but a month and a half ago, Black Twitter found out that was like the first. Cause like there's people like in the industry, and I used to live in LA too, so maybe that's why it came up in my feed. But I wasn't in the industry, but just that's how social media works. You just happen to know people, and shit pops up. But it exploded when they found out about it. Like everybody, like people in like Kansas were talking about it. But like this is what they were doing. There was a 4.5 hour version of that was the first cut, and black people were like, you know what? Guess what? I'm bringing some food. Like that's where the whole food thing started coming in because yes, that is a thing that black people do is bring food into the theaters. But they were like, you know what? I want all 4 hours. They're like, give it all to me. They're like, people, I'll take off work. People are like, it's the beginning of the year. I got vacation time. Like, they were going, like, people were just having all these funny snapbacks to the fact that there was a 4 hour, like, the first cut was 4.5 hours long or something like that.
I mean, I've seen the Watchmen 3 hour cut that they had. I mean, I could see a 4 hour movie. That's not a problem.
I would actually be okay with that because, but it seems like they touched on a lot of parts of the world, but there was so much that it felt like there were things that were missing in a way.
Yep.
Despite everything that we saw, and I could actually say I'd have to be able to take a break halfway through, but I could sit down and watch all that.
I mean, I'm the kind of person that sat down and watched the 10-hour cut of Napoleon from like 1920.
Yeah, but they didn't have editors back then.
No, that movie was meant to be that long.
I know. I'm joking, dude.
And they call those movies miniseries.
I took breaks, but granted, it's 10-hour version of
They're
a
called
movie.
anime.
I mean, I watch anime and stuff too, so it's like, oh, it's 10 hours? That's like a setting of a TV show.
Some animes are a 10-hour movie, like Death Note.
Oh, yeah.
It's a movie. You can watch the whole thing, you know.
Death Note was good until the second half, but yeah.
The problem is though when you get really hooked on a show and it pretty much ends up like the ending of Zardoz. You're like, wait, how many gray hairs do I have? Oh man, that person next to me is dead. Shit.
Zardoz.
The God is good.
The penis is evil.
The penis suit sees. Why? Any of that, why?
Because Zardoz is amazing, damn it. It's this gleeful pile of pretension and weirdness and mankinis and what the hell is the message of this film?
Connor can do anything.
People were on cocaine, a lot of cocaine. It was the 70s or 80s.
It was the 70s. They had not hit the full cocaine binge of the 80s just yet.
Right.
It's like they got their initial hit, and they were hooked. So they were like, let's make a movie. And the 80s is like, you know what? You call that a hit? Let me get my beer.
Do a lot of coke and vote for Ronald Reagan. 80s.
Oh, I also had to put another thing about it is that for my two really special characters in this film, for Bilbo and Gollum, I have to give it to them for being our Tolkien white guys.
God damn it.
Thank you.
We knew that joke would pop up.
It had to come up.
Sorry, I have to go back to it. Claw, he was trolling, and he was Gollum, and it's great. The whole thing is just it's wonderful.
I kind of wish he had been
You
around
make
a
one
little
of
bit longer.
those classic jokes. It's like it's the token white guy in this case.
And yeah, since we are getting full into spoilers right now, I am kind of disappointed that we're not going to see any more Claw now.
I know.
Oh yeah.
I would not want him to die that
Claw
soon.
has had an adventure over the Marvel movies. Like he's been through a couple of them, so them finally killing him off was definitely like, wow.
That was a shock though, because this was the one where they really started to do a lot more with this character. Then it's like, shit, you just got shot at a freaking car dump.
All right. So on that note, flash yes or no answers round the way. Was Killmonger right?
No.
Yes and no.
I'm mostly yes, somewhat no.
I'm a little bit of like in the middle there.
It's like
I was
gonna say you should not try to kill all those people and give them all the weapons that will allow them to destroy their own world. But you got some points.
His reasoning as to why he wanted to do it made sense because people are suffering, but to go into mass genocide, that's a different story. I was like, for a second, like watching it, I was like, please don't anybody in the theater cheer this guy for saying these lines at this point, because that would be awful. Yeah, like I was like, there was a second in the movie when he started talking about let's kill the people that have oppressed us and stuff. I was like, if anybody cheers yes at this point, I might need to go.
I want to go back in time and be at that theater and there just be that one guy who says yes, just very quietly, just to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, because
and then Dan just leaves, and I get to watch the rest of the movie.
It's like, no. I mean, I'm not like saying that's the situation that would have played out. I'm just saying that
Dan, I would have actually killed you because of all your.
Okay. Saying that line made me very apprehensive, I guess. I didn't think anyone was going to go all out and start cheering the fact that he's talking about killing people. But there was that awkward moment, like when he's like talking about, maybe we need to overcome our oppressors, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just trying to enjoy the movie.
Well, the funny thing is, it falls into what you were saying about the whole idea of Magneto, and what you were talking and what you were talking about. Shit, brain fart. Because that is very much Magneto's same mentality. It's like, look at all the things that have happened to us. But we are taking that same. But like with Magneto, he isn't really aware of the fact that he was taking that same violent approach. Or unlike Magneto, he's even more aware of that fact, which makes it that much potentially terrifying. Because he's got.
Can I offer something to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about the specificity of your analogy to Magneto, as well as with Killmonger. He never actually said. Maybe I'm extracting something that wasn't in the movie, but if I'm remembering his actual dialogue correctly, he was saying if it kills them all, then so be it. Like, it wasn't that he was saying directly to kill them all, but is that if they die, so be it.
Yeah, he was basically giving them the tools and letting them make their own decision.
It's like
exactly.
they have the guns.
That specific.
What they do with those guns is not our problem, because we're just giving them guns. We don't know what they're going to do with them, type thing.
Well,
correct, because all he wanted to do, he said, they will know who we are. They will know the power of Wakanda, and then the sun never set on the Wakandan Empire. That whole thing. But in that same regard, him and Magneto, to me, they had the same idea. They literally had the same idea. I really don't see a difference.
They should hang out and get a beer.
I think that'd be that would be in a way be a terrible idea. It's like, so we're combining our abilities, so the world is screwed.
Black Panther, I know you have an issue with these people. I also have issues with people. Well, let's get together and destroy.
That would become a horror film in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. I just want to touch back on what Aliya was saying earlier about how when we think about like Magneto and Xavier and also Malcolm X and MLK, and we talk about them in contrast versus them being, this and that. So when you talk about Killmonger and you talk about T'Challa, what they wanted to do, and it's really kind of like two sides of the same coin, because basically both of them at the end of the film were saying, we're going to use technology to change the world. That was like the basis of what they were trying to do. And they were both essentially saying, we're going to use what we have and our technology to empower our people. But the way that they wanted to empower their people kind of definitely wasn't the same. And the thing about it is that with Killmonger, like his way, he wanted to change the world, and he wanted to show, the power of Wakanda, and he wanted, people, black people to be, raised up because of the inequalities that they had suffered. But the way that he approached it was from a very, impatient, extremist type view. And I just thought it was very interesting how, also the same way with Magneto and Xavier. It's like they're both saying, hey, we're going to use the tools that we have available to change the world. And I think that needs to be, underscored.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I wanted to touch on something. This actually, I remember what I was trying to talk about earlier. And what that was regarding Killmonger. There's such a trope in storytelling where this person was raised in a bad environment or something bad happened to him. So because of that, it's the reason that he was not able to move past that. The thing I thought was interesting with Killmonger is that while he had that anger, at the same time the character is so unique because he, as I said, he went to MIT. He is extremely well educated. He is not only a soldier, but he has that intellect that drives him. And in a way, that actually makes the character more unique and more terrifying because he has the ability to convince people. But he also has that anger behind it, and you don't see that very often. Where you have a very educated villain. With, like we said, the only one that maybe Doctor Doom or Magneto, but not often in the MCU or in a lot of movies nowadays do you have a character like that.
He was kind of cool. Very much somebody who could, match T'Challa, both mentally and physically. I think that kind of it was very kind of it took me off guard. I was kind of I don't know. I feel from a story structure perspective, I definitely should have expected, it should have been obvious that Killmonger was going to beat T'Challa, at the Warrior Falls, but at the same time, I was just I had the same kind of mentality of the Wakandans who were watching it go down, nah, it isn't going to happen that way, because, T'Challa's just that badass, and he just Killmonger comes out of nowhere, and he's just what? I'm every bit as formidable as you are, and I've been, waiting my whole damn life for this, so you better believe I'm going to bring it.
And he has...
Now think about this. That is precisely as you put that. That is how people become radicalized. They are put through something that to them fuels hatred and anger to the point that they're willing to do precisely that. That's where that radicalism, that's how that speaks to people. People we in our real life conversations, or I should say real world conversations, we don't really talk about that. When people become radicalized, like the shooter and everything else, that was in Florida, to actual terrorists, right? Well, he's actual terrorist too, but I'm talking about organized terrorist organizations. How do these things function? Those environments. Specifically, Killmonger. You expose someone, you rip everything away from them. I mean, this was actually done with the child soldiers that were in Sudan and places like that. You do this to people to the point that this is the result of it. But ideologically, it's Killmonger's placed in a context of Black America. Now, the thing about it is that pain speaks to a lot of fears, narratively, that are a little hostile, because not every single black person wants to go off and kill them all, right?
Yeah.
But that feeling is real. That's why it's such a huge discussion in the black community right now of whether or not, am I at a point, am I Eric Killmonger? That's actually a hashtag, you know? Now think about that, just precisely what was said, what Dan said. What if you were sitting next to the person that said the yes? How would you have a conversation with that person knowing that they resonate with that specific feeling? Are you equipped to have that conversation right now? Because apparently there are people who feel that way. And and that's why my response to the whole thing is just you know what I'm saying? Because I want to know more about that. I understand deeply why he feels this way. Especially, he is special. That's a funny thing because he talked about that. He was like, I'm a little kid in Oakland believing in fairy tales. That's a lot of black nerds experience. Like, for real. We're sitting there going through all kinds of crazy crap, and then we read shit in comics like, you know, Wakanda. Like, this has been a fairy tale for us for so long, you know, and to find out one day that you are Wakandan, but these people don't even want to accept you. That's an allegory. We talk about that in terms of elite black culture. I'm kind of part of that myself. But they talk about that, like, you know, like the affluent black culture, the affluent of black Americans, the top 1% that happen to be black. Those people exist, and what are they doing? How are they watching all of us suffer and choose not to share their resources, their wealth? There's a lot of stuff that goes into this that are real conversations that are happening, but we're put back on this canvas and this backdrop. So Eric Killmonger as a villain, there's so many more levels to that in terms of that extremist view about what fuels that feeling, and also for the fact that you got to consider this: Killmonger knew the dialect that they were speaking. He knew it, and he just called it out. But once he didn't do that, he went right back into his American cadence and all of just the very American language that he had spoken. That this is what he was, but he was also Wakandan. It's such a great juxtaposition, and then he dies. So, spoiler, there it is. And then he dies because he chooses the ending based off of all of that. And that's another thing too. And so I want to put that out just to kind of bookend it for where I am personally. I don't want to speak for anybody else but myself. But that is, to me, that's the end choice. Is that, are you so committed to this pain and what it's done to you and the things you've done in the name of that pain, that death is your only option? Are you willing to take it that far? That's, to me, the lesson in that. And that's why T'Challa has to carry on with that and figure out a way. And having that motivation, as I'm saying, like, I don't think a Wakandan would have any other motivation unless someone came crawling to their doorstep and dying for that shit to say, please help us. It's a powerful narrative. Did it have to be that dramatic? Who knows? But, like, that's the way the story went. So I see a lot of value in that story, in that final, like, kind of like that coming to that close narrative. And then the outreach centers and so on and so forth. I think it's great.
I kind of feel the same way. Like, for a character that's supposed to be the main villain, I kind of felt sympathetic to his plight. Like, he had the raw deal. His father died not because his father did anything completely evil or anything. He was thinking of helping others out that were in trouble and in need. And he kind of the way his father was going, granted, was against the Wakandan ways, but you kind of got to respect where he was coming from. And then to find out his father is killed basically in cold blood and he's just left there with like nobody tries to like comfort him or even explain what's going on. He has to find out basically by finding his father dead, like which we find out later on in the movie. And then like he turns to America where he starts becoming this. I think he was an assassin or mercenary, if I'm not mistaken.
Black Ops.
Yeah, he was doing Black Ops, basically making like actually. I don't think we really touched base on it. The fact that he marked his body kind of, which was very similar to Victor Zsasz to me, honestly.
Yeah,
but
I thought the same thing.
It was like he's marking his body to basically show his victim, and you see his body is like got all these marks all over him, and you tell he's basically gone through some pretty fucked up shit, and then wanting to return home, which I do feel like they could have like tightened that up a bit, like the whole Claw thing. Like he's like taking Claw back to kind of show that he's Wakandan, trying to do the right thing with Wakanda. But he took it from Black Panther when he had made deals with the guy before. It's like, why didn't you just bring him before all this led to this type thing?
Well,
But
did they explain that though?
cool action scene. That's why.
Well,
Yeah.
well, did they explain that though? Like, this is the way that he, like, remember, like they were saying that he was trained to bring down governments, and so he had to wait until there was a regime change. He knew he already had this catalyst, and he had developed that catalyst with Claw. Like, it wasn't like this was some like we see it at the tail end with the museum. And honestly, that scene, I want to go back to mentioning that scene. Thank you so much for mentioning that scene, because literally when Killmonger was like, "You got all these security guards, but you ain't watch what you put in your body." Oh, I was done. I was done. I was just
awesome.
like,
That's so
that was.
movie.
Yeah, that was totally freaking awesome. But yeah, like, he timed this. Like, yes, he is very well educated. He was educated by our own systems to do precisely what he needed to do. Like, and the thing about it to that, and I've said this in a couple of threads, is that the reason why he did that, because he is Wakandan. He is of these people. Like, his dad, and that's the thing, that in the movie, yes, we understand that he's left at a very early age, but we underestimate what his dad taught him up to that point.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
And they kind of touch base on it when he goes in and does his own spooky dream sequence strength thingy when he sees his father.
The ancestors.
I want you to describe everything from now on, Dan. It's like
spooky dream sequence thingy.
the world described by
Circle
Dan.
of life, guys.
And the life of Michael described by Aliya.
But yeah, like, you kind of get the feeling, like, especially like that second half when they kind of establish, hey, this is what happened with his father. The fact that he was that kid playing basketball and that he found his father dead. You're kind of like, wow, he was played the rough deal. So you kind of feel for him, even though he just backstabbed Black Panther at the same time. So you're like, he's kind of a villain, but I kind of feel for this villain. Even when he died, I was still like, wow, I really kind of wanted him to die. I kind of wanted them to sort out their differences in a way.
Yeah.
I get it. It's not that kind of movie, but like, I feel it really would have resonated a bit more if, like, he's like, maybe there's a way that we both could get what we want without the killing somebody in the process.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect. Like, yeah.
And the worst part is T'Challa, you could tell, wanted that. And
yeah,
after the Killmonger dealt with, he was not going to have it.
Like, look, I can heal you, man. We can make this work. And he's like, nah. Like, and I feel like at that point when you mentioned like how he was like ready to die and all that, is because after going through all that trauma, dealing with the Black Ops stuff, and then getting to the point where he finally tried to get his homeland back in his because he's never been to Wakanda, never got to see Wakanda for what it was. The fact that when he dies, you kind of feel like maybe he just realized that his time on this planet is not now. Maybe people aren't ready for his kind of message type.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I hate to bring up The Princess Bride.
Oh,
We can bring that up on any show because that movie.
don't
was-
apologize.
I hate to bring up The Princess Bride, but think about this. Inigo Montoya, after he gives a speech, and, prepare to die, you son of a bitch. Like, that's the whole thing, right? What does he say to Wesley? I've been in the revenge game for so long, now I don't know what to do with myself.
essentially, and
Like, seriously. I mean, like, and Killmonger, he killed so many people. Like,
Yeah.
that whole thing at Warrior Falls, like, he's like, I did all of these horrific things and have had to justify doing them just so that I could kill you. Like, it can't, like, I know he didn't say all the things I just said, but, like, that's what he was intending, like, to say, and that's what that scarification symbolizes. Like, in African tribes that practice, that's the weight that's supposed to carry.
Mhm.
And so Killmonger, when he's doing this stuff, he's not just doing it. Like, there's things that are going into it. They're going through his head, right? As
Yeah.
he keeps doing this to himself. He's like, okay, so there's a character in Rurouni Kenshin.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, like that. Like, I can't remember his name off the top of his head. The dude, with all the bandages and shit. Like that just
yeah,
drives him absolutely crazy just because he needs the power that much. That's Killmonger. Killmonger's not a healthy dude. Like, there's not, like, yes, he may have made a lot of sense. He may have been, like, on Joker levels, I understand you, but he's put himself through some crazy crap just so that he could get to that place. And that whole story, like, to me, like, you know how Venom's coming out? Like, I would love to see the Killmonger prequel. Like, that would be cool. Like, I just kind of want to see that just because I'm kind of weird like that. Like, I know it doesn't end well. And it's kind of like I almost think it'd be like Human Centipede type stuff. Like, that's why, I don't want to see it, but I kind of do. But you have to think about the horrors this human put themselves through. Yes, we understand it, but he kind of, like, I don't know, like, I feel you in terms of we want that warm, fuzzy kind of bookend, but considering what he did to get there,
I'll give you that.
I don't even know what that would look like.
I
just
kind of
wanted
feel
to,
like,
go
even
ahead.
though, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Sorry.
let me finish what I was saying. I'll let you go. I guess, like you were saying, like, while the perfect world, T'Challa would have been like, yeah, let's make this work. But I get that in his mind, he's already checked out. Like, he tried to get to the point where he wanted, and that still didn't make him happy. He was just ready to go.
I can see that. Definitely.
Like, something that kind of stayed in my mind as I was watching Black Panther was kind of what we had already been exposed to of Black Panther and Civil War, and basically, like, the character arc that he had gone through, and how at the end of the movie he was basically saying, he was kind of, like, done with vengeance. And I think they kind of, as I was watching the movie, and it did kind of, like, pop up, like, specifically after, Forrest Whitaker's character. We haven't really talked about this, but he, Killmonger killed him off. And so there was that kind of, like, that moment that not only, and they do touch on in the film, like, the timeline of it all. This only takes place, like, a week after Civil War.
Yep.
Oh,
and
really?
So, like, his dad has only been dead for a week. And then not only that, but he has his other father figure killed, like, in that same span. And so when he had, like, the same kind of, like, reasons to feel the vengeance and Killmonger felt, but they needed to highlight the differences between Black Panther and Killmonger in that when, it came to the moment, like in Civil War, Black Panther, T'Challa, he didn't even need to do anything. All he needed to do was, like, let Zemo kill himself. And that was it, but he didn't let that happen. So you have one character who has, gone through this experience of having his father being killed, but still he's willing to let his father's killer live. But Killmonger obviously it does not. He wants that vengeance because that's what drives him, and that's something that T'Challa has moved past, and that's kind of like the part where their paths diverge.
Mm-hmm.
Ian?
Is
Well,
Ian asleep?
No, I was actually thinking about something because you mentioned Civil War, and with Zemo, you could see what they were going for, but it felt like they did it halfway in terms of his character. Like there were parts where he was like, "I'm evil," and then there were parts where it's like, "I can relate to this," but it felt like they were getting their feet wet in terms of the more three-dimensional villain. But it's half the
Agreed.
time he still kind of fell into the what I call the Ronin school of villainy, where it's like, oh, that's good because you're kind of there, but there were those other times where he became more relatable, became more fleshed out, and it felt like they were kind of building up to something like this, and that he was kind of the beginning of that. It's like, hey, we need more interesting villains than just Loki, and in many ways, he was kind of the them getting their feet wet, the step up to a character like Killmonger. And I really...
And also, we still have Thanos. Like, we're still not even at Thanos yet.
I know.
We don't even know how Thanos is going to be presented, considering now we have Killmonger. Yeah, we have Killmonger.
Chewing gum in the comic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I saw the trailer
Yeah.
and all I could think is, ooh, chewed up bubble gum.
It's
Like,
okay.
how are they going to present Thanos? Like, where are they going to go with him?
It almost
Well,
feels
they
like
have
Thanos is going to have to be almost like this step back in terms of that, like fully fleshed out. I love Thanos. I think he's like a character who kind of like instantly makes any comic book he's in more interesting. But he does kind of have like that
One-dimensional.
like that one dimensional, like that focus. He's got blinders on, and he wants to kill everything like in the name of loving death. And so there's not like too much like wiggle room for him for people to say, you know what, he's right. Let's stop and think about this because maybe he's got a point here. There's not going to be that moment. There's not going to be that dynamic to it. But since we're talking about Thanos and Infinity War, what I hope to see in Infinity War, as far as like what happens with Black Panther, Wakanda, is that we do start to see a little bit of like they touch on like a little bit of backlash of the world, feeling like they're a little bit betrayed by Wakanda because they're so advanced. And so I would love to have like this moment that would kind of I guess be like a coup for Marvel in the way that they basically made Baron Mordo like Doctor Strange's Sinestro. That's pretty much what they did with him. So I hope they. I think what they're going to do is like take another like Green Lantern moment away, and basically come to this place where the world is kind of like against Wakanda a little bit, and Wakanda kind of has like this deciding moment where they're just like, the world doesn't really like us that much, but like we're like the ones who are best equipped to defend the world. So I feel like they're going to get to this moment where they're like, okay, evacuate, everybody, but then everybody decides to stay. They decide to fight on behalf of the world, even though, they're not, in a great place in terms of popularity right now. And there was this moment in Green Lantern where during the Sinestro War where basically that sort of thing happens, where everybody's like, get out of the city, the Sinestro Corps is coming, and they're just like, no, we're not going to be pushed around, we're going to fight. And I think that moment's going to come. At least I hope it will.
I mean, we do have that giant forest running scene, so that has to be in the movie somewhere.
So, real quickly, something I wanted to touch on regarding Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity War is that having recently reread Infinity Gauntlet, the thing that's so interesting about that story is that we really, while we had Thanos stories since the 1960s, 1970s, after Infinity Gauntlet and after that defeat, that's when his character becomes interesting. Like, you actually get to see other dimensions of him. And what I'm hoping is either A, we end up seeing that in the first movie, or that the first movie itself is the Infinity Gauntlet story, and afterwards we get the aftermath, and we actually get focus on his character outside of I'm going to kill everyone because Death told me to, and she put me in, and if I don't, she'll totally not think I'm cool.
I don't think we're going to go down that road, the whole Death being telling him to do the Infinity Gauntlet. I don't even think they're going to touch base
I
on
think
that.
if anything, they're gonna actually put Hela in the death role.
Maybe. I don't even think they're going to touch base with it at all. Like, it's hokey as is. Like, Death told me to because I'm interested in love with her.
Dude,
So
I love Thanos, man. He's that asshole who claims that the friend zone is a real thing.
yeah.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
Well,
But we can consider this though. It's going to be like at best maybe 2.5 hours. And they literally, this is going to be, they have to join all of these universes together. They have to tell that story in a semi-cohesive way, and then we have to get to the fights plural, because we can't just have the fight. It has to be fights plural. So it's like, I think just a lot of the movie is just going to be trying to figure out how to navigate all of that together to get to the major fight.
They said there was like
just
70 characters plus in the movie, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. They're really trying to go for that comic book moment, like literally, because I mean, you know, actual Civil War. Not Civil War, but sorry, that's my brain was going. Civil War has so many more people in it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of like, and then so they had to cut down a lot. But now this time around, it's just literally of the characters that they have agreed they're going to show up into this, and the ones that we don't even know about yet. It's just like weaving that all together. Like, it's just, we do have some default franchises that already function together, like, through Avengers, and then Doctor Strange, we know definitely is showing up, and then Guardians of the Galaxy. So we know we got at least a couple that are already, like, what is it? The ensembles are already built in.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
The Thor Hulk team is going to be joining with Guardians first, because they had that whole post-credit thing where I believe that's Thanos' ship that shows up at the end.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the intro to the movie there, or near the very beginning anyway.
Apparently Peter Dinklage is supposed to be in the movie, but they haven't revealed his character. If Peter Dinklage plays Pip the Troll, I will be so goddamn happy, and the rest of the world will be confused.
I don't think he's going to be Pip the Troll.
Who
He's
the
definitely
fuck
gonna
is
be
Pip
one of
the
the Black
Troll?
You have not read Infinity
What?
Gauntlet.
You don't know.
I'm
who
sorry,
Pip the Troll is?
I'm more a fan of Darkseid, the non-Diet Coke version.
No. You shush, man.
I'm sorry, Thanos is a
totally-
ripoff of Darkseid. We all know this.
He totally is. He just gets more interesting storylines.
He is, but he's more accomplished, so...
I did love the storyline that DC did recently. They made fun of the Infinity Gauntlet with Darkseid. It was actually pretty funny. Like, it was a ring that had like a whole bunch of the Green Lantern ring colors.
So Dan, are you going to say that you have not read Infinity Gauntlet?
I have not.
Read Infinity Gauntlet. It's fucking amazing.
I don't really get sorry.
There's a part where Captain America is all like, Thanos, I'm going to kick your ass. I've got my awesome shield. And then Thanos just punches the shield, and the shield just fucking shatters.
He just swats it, and it just like goes to dust. Basically.
I'm sure that's not going to happen in the movie because he no longer has that shield.
Yeah, but apparently he's going to be getting one that's made of vibranium and adamantium.
Yeah, so like Black Panther literally says, "Get this man a shield." Like it's the whole thing.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So I actually forgot about the trailer for the movie.
Oh, we have to have a moment where Cap lifts Mjolnir and says, "Avengers Assemble." Is there any way that that's not going to happen?
That would be like my version of the movie where I wrote when I was drunk.
That has to happen.
Well, in Thor Ragnarok, they destroyed the hammer, though.
You know he's getting another one. You know damn well he's getting.
There have been many hammers. He has held aloft many a hammer. Yes, that's supposed to sound bad.
He's also one-eyed Thor.
Yeah.
God damn it! That was just getting dirty. I'm gonna stay away from this show. That's right, Circuit 42. We're basically children, including me.
Accurate.
The funny thing is, when you were talking about the scene with when you were talking about people like arguing back and forth, and then finally one person's like, "Hey, let's stop," and then everybody stops. That's pretty much me and Daniel on comments on Facebook.
Also, just about comic books in general. It's like DC, Marvel, DC, Marvel.
I'm just sitting here.
Vertigo? Vertigo, anyone?
Yes, Vertigo. I freaking
Vertigo.
freaking
yes.
We Three
Or
makes me
Wildstorm.
We Three makes me cry. God damn it! So makes me cry. Stupid Grant Morrison and his Homeward Bound.
Image? Do we have any other?
Image is just awesome. Like,
Image is like,
Oh, God,
hi,
Invincible
you're
just
still
ended.
there.
well, if you're saying that, you have not read any Image comics, because
I haven't read Image since the
because,
90s.
dude, you need to read what they're doing now. It's almost like they're just massively apologizing for the 90s by making awesome things.
They made a
Saga.
series.
You have to read Saga and Invincible.
And Sex
I
Criminals.
heard Saga is good.
Read Sex Criminals, goddammit.
I've been reading that one.
Then you've been reading Image books.
There you go, guys.
You
I read
lying
Image
son of a
books.
bitch.
I
Like,
just prefer...
seriously. Yes, you should read Sex Criminals. You really should.
DC Rebirth, everybody.
Moral of the
Oh.
episode, read Sex Criminals.
Which is a lot better than Marvel Legacy, I'm sorry.
Except for,
Yeah,
Justice League finally got a writer, so that's kind of nice.
You
Who's
need to
writing
stop
Justice
hating
League
on
now?
Justice League.
Can they keep it? Can they keep them?
Christopher Priest.
Oh, okay.
So we are getting Christopher Priest from frickin' the guy who made Black Panther awesome again, and then they kind of screwed that up for about 4 years later. And we're getting him writing Justice League now, and we might be getting him on a future episode of the show. I'm kind of getting that set up.
Hmm.
Ooh.
There you go.
We have to drop that to use for a later episode.
Yes.
So, does everybody recommend the Black Panther movie?
Hell
I
yeah.
Yes.
think yes. I could be wrong, though.
The movie's great. Like honestly, any flaws that the movie has are really more nitpicking. And while there might be slight issues in the movie is overall fantastic. And I would actually put it in my top, if not my favorite Marvel movie, which is still Winter Soldier, I would put this in my top 5.
Agreed.
I agree with that. I would say this movie is like a 9.5. Because of just some of the issues that I mentioned earlier, but overall, I do plan to see it again at least 2 more times in theater. And yeah, it was a great experience, and I recommend checking it out.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Michael's
Definitely.
like, I don't like that movie. That movie's butt. So I'm just not going to talk.
Mike's like, I don't want to comment because everybody's going to hate me because I hated it.
No, I definitely did not hate the movie. I liked it a lot.
Awesome.
That. Okay.
All right.
Very awesome. Very, very awesome. I fully agreed. I saw it 3 times in like the first 4 days. So I liked it. I think I've expressed my affection for this movie. Definitely looking forward to Infinity War, as well as gotta say, I was gonna put that plug in there. Ant-Man and Wasp and Ant-Man. Which way is it going?
Oh, that trailer was awesome.
That looks so much fun.
Ant-Man
For real?
and the Wasp.
Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp. We are doing that, and Wrinkle in Time. I look forward to that too. Hopefully it does a lot better than freaking Valerian. I'm like, come on, I need something
I like
visually.
Valerian.
I liked Valerian.
Minus Dehane Hagen's overacting.
What?
Minus Dehane Hagen's overacting, because it's like, dude, you're just Keanuing all over the place. I honestly enjoyed that movie.
Oh, so
Venom.
I-
Also Venom.
that's it. Those are my thoughts. So,
I am going to throw one movie out there that I'm really looking forward to, and I kind of went crazy about it on Facebook and Instagram. I Kill Giants. It's based off the comic by Joe Kelly. He's known for writing Deadpool, but this is probably the best thing he ever wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And it's starring Zoe Saldana, Imogen Poots, and Jennifer Ale. And at first I was kind of like, wait, what? I'm kind of worried because a lot of times independent comics get adapted by big studios. It kind of falters. Except Joe Kelly is writing the movie, and he is the sole writer on the movie.
Wow.
And I saw the
Joe
trailer.
Kelly, like the Superman comics writer, Joe Kelly? Oh,
but
wow.
I Kill Giants is like considered the best thing that he has ever written, just outright. And
Very cool.
And the production team behind Harry Potter is going to be making the I Kill Giants movie.
Nice.
Oh, wow. Oh, you know what? That also reminds me of just keep an eye out for. Netflix is producing a series for Raising Dion. It's the premise of it is I believe from a webcomic. Don't quote me on that one, but the premise of it is a black mother, raising her son who happens to have superpowers, and what that experience like is to raise a boy by yourself that has superpowers. So definitely keep an eye out for Netflix for that original production.
And to tie in starring Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, yes. I have 3 movies I want to mention that I'm excited for. They're coming out in the next few months. First one, which is coming out next month, is Ready Player One. It's coming out March 29th.
Yes!
God,
Oh, yeah.
the first trailer had me hooked, and every follow-up trailer has got me more hooked.
There's only one part that I thought was kind of funny, and I'm dead. It's like, wait, what?
Deathstroke hanging out with Harley Quinn. Walking by.
Was that Deathstroke or was that Deadpool?
That was Deathstroke.
Huh.
I think.
Deadpool,
I could be wrong. I think it was Deathstroke, though.
Well, they look a lot alike. I mean, Deadpool did a lot from Deathstroke. Like his
Yeah,
character.
that movie has been my huge hype. I know some people hate it for being a nostalgia movie.
Nah,
I
they go
don't
to
care.
hell.
Back to the Future, DeLorean. Fuck you guys. Also,
Frickin' Kaneda's motorcycle from Akira is
yes.
racing against the DeLorean.
Oh yeah.
I am happy.
The
Iron Giant's in it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, there's a lot in there. Like there's Duke
Chucky.
Nukem is in there as well. There's
Ultron is in it.
Freddy's in there. Freddy Krueger
Yeah.
is in there too. It's like there's a bunch. Like I'm not sure how they got all these studios to agree to work on a movie together, but that's pretty awesome.
Like Steven Spielberg called in a lot of favors, I guess.
It's like, everyone, I'm Steven Spielberg, do what I want. Okay.
Pretty much.
It's like guys, I'm gonna make this, but work for the same studio, dude, gonna make this. Is it sad? I'm still kind of looking forward to the Death Wish movie on March 2nd.
The problem is it's Eli Roth.
I'd give it a chance anyway. After that, there's of course Deadpool 2. That's Cable.
That looks fucking great.
That's Domino.
Josh Brolin. Oh my goodness, Josh Brolin. I'm
remember.
sorry. I'm a girl. I just have to. I don't know why. Ever since like freaking The Outsiders.
For the longest time, Dan was bashing.
No, I'm sorry.
Josh Brolin.
I got somebody else. I got somebody else confused. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
For the longest time, Dan was bashing on the casting of Josh Brolin, and then I guess that trailer came out.
Yes, the trailer came out. I
my
still
gosh.
think that my original pick would have been interesting too. By the way,
I know.
but yes, I do like Josh Brolin.
Okay, I have to correct myself. Not The Outsiders. Outsiders, I was actually thinking about something completely different. But Josh Brolin, since the Goonies, that's what I meant to say.
And his 80s workout gear.
Oh my goodness, with a little itty bitty bike. Oh goodness,
I forgot
just
that
pedaling.
was him. Yeah,
That is him. It has been a while. Like literally, Goonies Never Say Die, and I was just. Josh Brolin has always been kind of that like dickish older person that I kind of would have said yes to. Like that's just like and he stays that. Now he's Cable, and I'm just like I can't stop with this person.
I love how there's
It's
a huge
horrible.
moment where like Goonies, and then nothing happened to me, and then all of a sudden No Country for Old Men came out, and it's like what the fuck?
Yeah.
Well, he was also in Old Boy too. He's been in a couple of things that's just like, and he doesn't play good characters. Like I don't feel good anymore about the fact that I have a crush on Josh Brolin from all the characters that he's played. He played George W. Bush, but
he
I
was
still
so
have a
good
thing
in
for
that
Josh
movie.
Brolin.
But the thing is, like that movie, while it was not one of Oliver Stone's best, he was fucking great in that movie.
Dude, he's Thanos.
Yeah.
He's fucking
I know.
Thanos.
He gets to play. Okay, this is why we can hate Brolin a little bit. The guy gets to play Thanos and Cable, and I think every nerd is like, you motherfucker, I want to play Thanos
Yes.
and Cable.
He's still that older brother. Like he's still like I told you. Like
The Domino actor is also warming up to me. Sorry, it's warming up on me. Sorry.
I can't wait to. I cannot wait to.
Something that I
No
thought was
idea.
really interesting when they just released all the pop figures, all the images for the pop figures based off the movie, and I had a theory about the movie that we were because in the comic books the skin bleaching is actually part of her mutation. We never see her prior to that though, and in the pop figure based off the movie, she has the bleached skin. So I'm wondering if we're actually going to see her prior to the mutation and afterwards. And well,
That's
actually,
the whole thing.
yeah, because they showed that in the pop based off the movie, and she looks like the comic book version.
Another movie that's looking pretty good is Rampage.
Oh
With,
God, God,
with,
that movie looks
They
amazing.
did Rampage as a movie. It's freaking Rampage.
That is the definition of that's a movie.
Dude, got Dwayne Johnson, and he was amazing in Jumanji 2.
I just imagine, considering that movie's coming out at 420, someone's gonna come out baked as hell and be like,
Oh,
"So what happened in the movie?" Well, I'm not sure, man, but pretty sure the Rock turned into a gorilla and climbed up the side of a building and fought Godzilla. 5 stars
but
out of
Jeffrey
5.
Dean Morgan's in the movie.
I know,
You know
and
that, right?
I have
And
a
Joe
theory-
Manganiello's in it.
I have a theory that Jeffrey Dean Morgan actually did injure himself during The Walking Dead, because remember he has that little sideways kind of weird what the fuck walk that he does, and we're
Yeah.
like,
Oh, God.
maybe that was part of the character. And then we see the trailer for this, and he's still doing that. And
Maybe
I'm
he
like,
thinks it's a trademark. This is
no.
Oh,
Well,
I
because there were
walked
so
it
many. I hate to say it, there have been a lot of. It's sad to say there have been a lot of injuries and worse recently in that show, and I'm wondering if he actually hurt himself in that show, and that's why he's walking like that.
If that's the case.
His fucking signature Negan walk kills me because he keeps on leaning
no,
back
no.
further and
No,
further.
his signature
How
Negan
far
walk
back
is
can
just
you
scoliosis. That's what his signature walk is. His signature walk is just
Oh my
scoliosis.
That's it.
I'm a terrible human
Now,
being.
I'm not as interested as others might be, but Pacific Rim Uprising.
Oh yes. Speaking of
It's-
giant,
It's not
giant
Toro,
monsters.
so I don't care.
I am so concerned.
John Boyega.
I am so concerned because we have lost Guillermo del Toro. I had so much passion for that movie, and now Guillermo del Toro's not doing the movie, and we've got the producer of like various TV shows doing the movie,
Yeah.
and then we've got Emily Carmichael. Who's Emily Carmichael? The writer of Nothing. Like literally
It's
a couple
that
of short
issue
films.
that also it's like, well,
Nothing.
people like Pacific Rim. I didn't like it personally. I fell asleep honestly, but
And the producer of the 100. I'm really not looking forward to Pacific Rim Uprising.
now Solo. Okay, I saw the trailer for Solo during the movie, and honestly,
Solo from Spider-Man?
no,
I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you. I know.
And
I wanna be
honestly,
Punisher.
he's still an adjustment. I still can't see him as Han Solo. Like I see him and I'm like, okay, you got Donald Glover from Atlanta, which is okay, awesome. He's a good Lando. Then I see this guy and I'm like, I can't just picture him as Han Solo. I just can't.
I'm not excited. I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm just really... I'll watch it because, Disney's going to get my money. But, I'm not excited about it. I'm just not.
That's how I feel like with a lot of the... Like, I'm hoping that Star Wars is not going to start having that trend. But yeah, I'm basically going to watch it because it's a Disney Star Wars film. But yeah, I'm not hyped or anything for it.
I'm just concerned that they're moving... That one of the things I've actually liked about the Star Wars movies is that we get an episode every 2 years. And then we get a solo story every 2 years. And now we're going to rush, instead of going from December to December, we're rushing from December to May. And that is something that I worry about. I actually, it sucks that we have movies being delayed. It sucks that we have New Mutants being delayed, which actually looks like a really kind of a cool movie. But I would rather a movie get pushed back so they could improve it or change things in a positive way than take a movie that was supposed to come out in December and move it into May, 7 months early.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the only one, but that strikes me as something to worry about.
I'm looking at the cast for Solo, and I'm like, it's a comedy troupe. This movie clearly was meant to be a comedy. You have Woody Harrelson in here.
And the ever hilarious Paul Bettany. Wait, maybe.
Yeah, funny. But I'm just like, you could tell that this movie initially was a comedy. Some directors got fired, and then Ron Howard took over. Yeah, that was a big...
I just really hope it's not... I really just hope it's not Star Wars done by, Wes Anderson. Because, I don't know, why. It's just... It seems so weirdly stylistic and, it doesn't... I don't know, I just haven't seen it yet, but it just seems like it's almost like tropes of Star Wars. Kind of like that Ewok movie. Or maybe that Christmas... Or maybe that Christmas special. I don't know. I have no idea.
Do you remember Star Wars, people? Because there's Han Solo, there's Lando, there's all these other people. Oh, there's Chewbacca, because Chewbacca.
Think about it this way, man.
Yeah,
you have
that.
Sorry. I was going to say, you have Clint Howard in this movie. And the great thing about Clint Howard, you just put some crepe hair on that man, and you have a Star Wars alien. So they're going to save so much money, because all they have to do is put some extra hair on Clint Howard, and we've got a Star Wars alien.
I still appreciate the fact that Clint Howard's first role is the baby on Star Trek. The baby destroyer.
Yep. I know what you're talking about. The original series.
You want some trivia?
His career is so random.
Motherfuckers.
His career was so random and beautiful, man. I mean, he was in Rock and Roll High School, Apollo 13, and The Waterboy. Who can say that?
Well, my brother
and a number of Uwe Ball
Hollywood,
films.
so I get to be in any movie I want with my brother.
But he was also in a number of Uwe Ball films, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't biting on the bit for that.
True. No, I think if it could get that same honestly, I thought Rogue One was better than Force Awakens. So if it can get me as sold as Rogue One was, I can be behind this. But I'm not getting that same vibe I had with Rogue One, which I still have a problem with because there's clearly some scenes that have been cut away from Rogue One compared to the original trailer, which seemed like a darker, more foreboding film than it already was.
Darker than Everyone Dies.
You see the trailer.
I know what you mean, but I had to say that. I'm sorry.
But she's all like, I'm a rebel, I rebel. That
line is terrible. I'm glad they took that out.
It is a terrible line.
It's a terrible line.
That's bordering on, we're like some kind of Suicide Squad.
Oh,
but I will have to say this, though. With Rogue One, though, Rogue One seemed much more to, the Star Trek. Wow, I didn't say that. The Star Wars.
Star Trek.
I'm looking at my room. My room is filled with Star Trek shit. That's just what it is. But Star Wars, for the Star Wars Extended Universe, that Rogue One seemed to really fit into that. I walked out of Rogue One thinking, this is why I enjoy Star Wars. This is really why. It had more of that feeling of that, just kind of and like I said, if anybody has even read a part of the fan fiction, or if you're just a part of just one of the books, you would, or you know what? Watch Rebels. Just do something else that's outside of the movies. You'll like Rogue One. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, Rogue One really fits.
Sorry.
Yeah, like if like, you know, just get into the other parts of the Star Wars universe that was outside of that at that point. The 7-film, you know, you can't even call it trilogy, but you know, whatever.
Back to Forrest Whitaker, and that makes me happy.
That Star Wars movie that has 7 on it.
Yes.
That Star Wars movie with 8 on it. 7 was bad. It was okay, but I really liked 8. But yeah, Rogue One really fit like a puzzle piece that fixed. It felt like a puzzle piece that fit. I didn't feel the same way with Force Awakens at all.
Hey guys,
And I'm gonna echo like what you guys were saying. I'm not actually like too excited about Solo. I kind of feel like after The Last Jedi basically set us up for this whole perspective on Star Wars, where it's all about the next generation. It's all about, you know, what comes next, and then, you know, to go back and go through this whole like nostalgia fest, like you know, kind of you were touching on, like, oh, like here's Lando back, and here's you know
I
here's
like
Han
Lando's
Solo.
cape.
It's the
Who doesn't?
80s. We're going
Still.
back to the 80s.
It just feels like a little bit of like a regression, and the fact that like Solo, I guess, I don't know, like I don't really think like he's that interesting of a character to begin with. I feel like if you're going to, like, if you have like your pick of characters to make a Solo movie of, you know, like no pun intended, that you would probably pick, you know, characters like Darth Maul or Yoda or Lando or Princess Leia or something. I think Han Solo would be kind of far down on that list. And I think that's why a lot of people were not excited about it.
I will say this: if it turns out that Lando's cape is completely made out of Ewoks, I will be so happy with this movie.
I'm Donald Glover. I was in these. I'm pretty awesome.
I have a pip cape. I'm Donald Glover.
Speaking of Donald Glover, I can't wait till the new season of Atlanta comes out.
I love that his mom literally told him, "This is a very, very important role. If you fuck this up, you're in trouble."
That's awesome.
If you fuck this up, I'm gonna be mad. No, she said, if you mess this up, I'll be very mad at you.
His Morales' uncle in Spider-Man.
Yep, that made me so happy that they tied that in.
Yeah, unfortunately got too old to play Miles Morales, but, you know, close enough.
Honestly, Donald Glover could just shave and look like he did back when they were first announced that.
That's the Pharrell effect, really.
I did Community back in 2009. It's been too long.
I shaved. Now I'm back there. It's like, how did that happen?
I think it's probably a good time to come to a close. It's 12:42, guys.
Yeah, I just realized this show has actually gone on for almost 2.5 hours. that was a lot of fun,
As
though.
long as the movie Black Panther.
Hey, we have to go full with the CinemaStomp technique. If we like the movie, our review will actually be longer than the movie. Wait, no, that's the opposite of theirs. If they dislike the movie, their review is longer than the movie. We're just all nerds who don't know how to stop.
Nerds? That's a derogatory term.
That is not nowadays. That is not a derogatory term, and that makes me fucking happy.
Definitely not.
It's the revenge of the nerds.
As long as it's not the third one.
I like the first two. Third one, Nerds in Love is bad, but Revenge of the Nerds 4 is actually
I love good. That pause, by the way. I like the first two.
They're the only really good ones.
Yeah, once they start getting made for TV, that's a problem. All right, so with that, as we bring this episode of Circuit 42 and this amazingly epic Black Panther review, which was actually longer than the movie Black Panther, I am Ian McIntosh, and my co-hosts.
Oh, I'm Dan. I think I'm a co-host, guys. I'm not sure. Hi, guys. Bye, guys.
And this is Michael Martinez.
Yeah. You guys are God.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry?
I said this was Aliya, and you guys are great.
As for you. And quick thing I wanted to ask you while we are finishing up the show we actually really liked having you on the show, and would like to ask you to become a, if your schedule permits for it, a regular or semi-regular co-host on the show.
I'm down up for it.
Awesome.
Because I don't know what my directions are. Yay!
There are no directions on Circuit 42.
Commence
It's
to
fantastic.
juggling.
And
I think I'll start using that more often. I'm down up for it.
Up, down, down, up.
sideways.
Cat dog.
Right, left, right.
Backwards.
A,
Dog
B.
use the bathroom.
Okay, let's let Michael finish.
Wait, what's happening now?
Well, we kind
Say goodbye, Michael. Goodbye.
Bye, Michael. You're one of us, Michael.
One of us. One of
One
us.
of us.
We go viral. We go viral. I want to watch Troll 2 for some reason.
Now I want to watch.
You're the only one.
That movie's
Hey,
awesome. You shut up.
It's campy. Because, oh my
They're
god!
eating her, and then they're going to eat me. Oh my god! And with that, and with the oh my god guy from Troll 2, we will bring this episode to a close. Thank you, everybody, all 5 of you on the internet, for listening, and hopefully you'll bring back some more people.
There's people.
All the people.
You've been listening to Circuit 42, brought to you by Dragon's Lair San Antonio and Gotham Newsstand. Join us for our next episode. For all things geek.
Circuit 42.